The grand hall of this Blackwood mansion in Beverly Hills echoed with cruel laughter as Butterfly Sterling descended the marble staircase in a gown worth more than most of the guests' yearly salaries. It wasn't admiration, it was merciless mockery. "Look who decided to show up," Award Blackwood whispered to his guests, raising a glass of Dom Perignon. "Our beloved cleaning lady." At 35, Butterfly had never imagined herself walking into that ballroom as an invited guest, even as a joke. For 2 years she had scrubbed every corner of this estate, always invisible, always silent, quietly observing the rich pretend to be kind while treating her like furniture. 3 days ago, she received a hand-delivered invitation sealed in gold along with a smirk she knew far too well. "Charity Gala this Saturday," Award had said, handing her the envelope. "Dress code maximum glamour. I'm sure you've got something suitable lying around." The laughter from his entourage rang down the hallway. This was clearly a trap, a public shaming staged for the elite. Award even invited media outlets to immortalize the teachable moment. "Wanna bet?" Award said to his wife Helena the day before as Butterfly vacuumed the hallway. "100 grand says she won't show, and if she does, she'll be the joke of the night." Helena laughed coldly. "She'll probably borrow something hideous and flee in 15 minutes flat." But Award didn't know two very important things about butterfly temps. First, she was raised in halls just like these long before she had to scrub them to survive. Second, there are storms that don't drown you, they teach you how to dance in the rain. As she walked through the ballroom under their sneering stares, Butterfly stood tall, her expression calm like a woman carrying secrets capable of toppling empires. Her steps were poised deliberate, as if every move was part of a dance she'd practiced for years. "Oh my God, she actually came," whispered Patricia Weston, wife of a senator. "And that dress? Where on earth did she get it? Probably rented." "Paying it off in 10 installments," sneered Vivian Chambers, daughter of an oil tycoon, masking her insecurity with venom. What none of them knew was that Butterfly didn't rent the dress, didn't borrow it, didn't buy it. She reclaimed it from a past none of them could imagine. A past Award would do anything to erase if he knew. Award strutted over, puffed up with pride, and flanked by billionaire friends. He was certain he was the director of this public humiliation. Butterfly. "What a surprise, I knew you'd come," he said, voice laced with mockery. "After all, and when someone like you gets an invite to an event like this." "Someone like me," Butterfly repeated, voice soft but sharp as silk slicing air. "Go on, Award." Finish that sentence. Something in her tone made him hesitate for a fraction of a second. There was a steel in her voice he hadn't noticed before, not in the silent cleaner he thought he knew. But arrogance quickly took over. "Well, someone who doesn't usually frequent these circles. This must all feel very unfamiliar." Butterfly smiled, not shy, not sweet, but the kind of serene, unsettling smile that made a few guests nearby stop laughing. "Unfamiliar," she repeated, eyes locking on his. "No, Award. I'm standing exactly where I've always belonged." The silence that followed lasted only seconds, but it shifted the entire atmosphere. There was something about the way she spoke, the way she moved, the way she owned the space. It challenged every label they'd ever slapped onto her. Award cleared his throat, trying to wrest back control. "Well, I hope you enjoy the evening. I'm sure it'll be an educational experience for you." "Oh, I'm certain it will be an educational evening for all of us," Butterfly said, her eyes sweeping across the room as if memorizing every face. If you're enjoying this story of justice and spectacular takedowns, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. What those wealthy guests didn't realize was that Butterfly carried a secret powerful enough to turn this meticulously staged night of humiliation into the greatest lesson Beverly Hills had ever witnessed about prejudice and underestimating others. Award was still basking in smug satisfaction. Butterfly hadn't run away like he expected. She stood there proud, poised, her strange calmness beginning to unnerve him. "Ladies and gentlemen," Award tapped a silver spoon against his crystal glass, his voice rising over the crowd. "It is my honor to introduce tonight's special guest, Miss Butterfly, the devoted housemaid of my family." Laughter erupted like a crashing wave across the ballroom. Phone flashes flared. Socialites began snapping photos to post online, each caption more mocking than the last. "Award. Helena tugged her husband's sleeve, concern in her voice. Don't you think you're going too far? Too far? Ward chuckled loudly. I'm giving her the opportunity of a lifetime. When else would she ever get invited to an event like this? Butterfly remained in the center of the ballroom. Every eye was on her. But instead of crumbling under shame like they had expected, her expression left them unsettled, the quiet confidence of someone who had already weathered far worse storms. Patricia Weston approached with her entourage, a cruel smile on her lips. Darling Butterfly, how long did it take you to pick out that dress? Must have been tough finding something even remotely acceptable. Actually, Butterfly said calmly, her even tone making Patricia falter slightly. This dress has a rather special history. It used to belong to my mother. Your mother, Vivian Chambers sneered. What fancy thrift shop did she buy that from? Butterfly smiled, but this time it was dangerous. My mother wore this dress the last time she entered a ballroom like this 20 years ago, when she was still known as Butterfly Temps Blackwood. The silence that followed was deafening, as if the air had dropped into a void. Several guests fell quiet, sensing something massive had just been revealed. A ward mid-laugh, with a group of men slowly turned around. What did you say? Temps? Blackwood. Yes. Butterfly pronounced each word with chilling clarity. Funny how some people find it convenient to forget their family history. A ward's face began to pale. Helena clutched his arm, sensing something very wrong. You're delusional, a ward snapped, his voice cracking. I don't know what game you're playing, but this isn't a game, Award. Butterfly stepped forward. Several guests instinctively backed away. This is history. Our history. The one you tried to erase because admitting the truth was harder than accepting the people in your own bloodline. Phones were still recording, but now for an entirely different reason. Helena panicked, yanking on Award's arm. What? What is she talking about? She's lying, Award barked, but his hands were visibly trembling. She's just some mentally unstable woman looking for attention. Butterfly reached into her clutch and pulled out a small object that made several people gasp. It was the Blackwood family's engagement ring, engraved with their crest and embedded with a signature sapphire passed down through generations. This ring, Butterfly declared, holding it high, was given to my mother by Henry Blackwood, my grandfather. How did you get that? Award stammered. You stole, Butterfly laughed, but it wasn't joyful. Award, you can't steal something that's yours by blood. Patricia Weston, jaw slack, whispered to her friend. Oh my God, is she telling the truth? No way, Vivian mumbled, but her voice lacked certainty now. If Award had a sister, he would have told us, wouldn't he? Butterfly turned to them, her eyes calm. Sister. Oh no, ladies, I'm not his cousin. She paused just for a beat, then stared straight at Award. I'm his half-sister. Same father. The room erupted in gasps, murmurs, stifled cries. Award looked like he had been struck by lightning. Ludicrous, he screamed, his voice cracking wide open. My father would never, Mr. Henry Blackwood, Butterfly cut in, had an affair with my mother Isabella, the family's piano teacher, for 5 years. When she got pregnant with me, he promised to take care of us, and he kept that promise until the day he died. Helena now had her hand over her mouth, eyes wide as she looked from her husband to Butterfly, as if watching a slow-motion car crash unfold before her. And you, Award, Butterfly pointed straight at him. You chose to pretend we never existed. You cut off the allowance, sold the house your father bought for my mother, and left us in utter poverty. I wasn't obligated to. Award tried to defend himself. No obligation to your own father's family, Butterfly cut in again, her voice sharp as cold steel. Interesting logic, especially considering you inherited 100% of the estate instead of sharing it fairly as it should have been. By now, several guests had stepped away from Award, as if simply standing near him might entangle them in scandal. Prove it, Award nearly shouted. Anyone can make up a story and flash a fake ring. Butterfly smiled this time with the smile of a predator who knew the end was near. Really, Award? You think I'd come here without proof? She pulled out her phone and signaled to someone waiting at the door. You may come in now. 3 people stepped into the room, and their arrival changed the lives of everyone present forever. The first was Diane Morrison, Beverly Hills' most renowned investigative journalist. The second was David Chun, a top inheritance lawyer. The third made a Ward stagger as if punched in the gut. Dr. Hamilton, Helena gasped. Our family doctor. What are you doing here, Dr. Hamilton? The man who had cared for Henry Blackwood in his final years stepped into the center of the hall. His hands trembled slightly, but his voice was steady. 20 years ago, I was coerced into signing a false death certificate. Henry Blackwood didn't die of heart disease. He was slowly poisoned with arsenic over several months. The hall erupted with gasps and cries of disbelief. Some guests clutched their mouths, others backed away. No one could believe what they were hearing. Diane Morrison raised her hand, voice firm and professional. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your phones away. This is an official statement and is being recorded for legal purposes. Ward was drenched in sweat now, face pale, voice shaking. You're insane, Hamilton. My father had heart problems. Your father, Dr. Hamilton interrupted firmly, found out you had been embezzling money from the company for years. He changed his will, included Butterfly's name, and was preparing to report you to the police when the symptoms began. Butterfly stood still, tears silently rolling down her cheeks, but her eyes gleamed. After 20 years, the truth had finally been spoken. Lawyer David Chun stepped forward, opened his briefcase, and produced a stamped legal document. This blood sample was tested last week by an independent lab. Results: arsenic levels well beyond lethal. You're all lying. Ward screamed, no longer in control. This is a setup to ruin me. Diane Morrison stepped up, voice calm but unyielding. Mr. Blackwood, I have 5 recorded conversations between you and Dr. Hamilton from 2003 to 2004. In them, you threatened to destroy his career if he ever revealed the truth. Finally, Butterfly spoke again. Her voice sliced the air like a knife. You didn't just kill my father, Ward. You stole 20 years of my life. I didn't kill anyone. Ward stumbled, pointing wildly. You're all lying. Butterfly took out her phone and connected to the mansion's sound system. A recording began to play, Ward's voice unmistakable. Hamilton, keep your mouth shut about anything weird you find in the old man's blood. If you say a word, I'll make sure you never practice medicine again. And as for the woman and the bastard child, let them fend for themselves. Silence fell over the room. No more laughter, no more sympathy. Even those who had once defended Ward now shrank back in disgust. Helena, still standing beside him now, looked at her husband with pure revulsion. Oh my God, you really did it! 20 years! Butterfly screamed, her voice cracking for the first time. For 20 years I had to mop the floor where my father once walked, clean up the blood of the very man you killed. She took a deep breath, regaining composure. Her voice turned cold like steel. You want to know how I got the evidence? I didn't end up working at this mansion by accident. I spent 2 years planning, gaining trust, gaining access, collecting every single puzzle piece. I'm not here for revenge, Ward. I'm here for justice. Ward struggled to his feet. Even if it's true, it doesn't change anything. The inheritance was divided years ago. For the first time that evening, David Chun smiled. Mr. Blackwood, under state law, if a death is proven to be murder, the estate can be redistributed according to the original will. And we have the original will of Mr. Henry Blackwood. Butterfly stepped closer. Ward now looked like a cornered animal. Do you know where I went wrong, Ward? I believed you could change. Please. Ward choked out, his voice shattered, all arrogance gone. Helena, the children, this will destroy the whole family. You destroyed this family, Butterfly replied, her gaze pained but unwavering, when you chose money over what was right. Ward collapsed into the chair, defeated. The fall from smug millionaire to exposed criminal had happened in a matter of hours. The luxurious room, once a symbol of Blackwood power, was now the scene of the biggest scandal high society Beverly Hills had ever witnessed. Ward now slumped on the floor, back against the wall, eyes blankly staring at the ceiling, as if watching his life fall apart piece by piece. Meanwhile, Diane Morrison connected her laptop to the mansion's projector system. One by one, images, documents, and audio recordings appeared on the massive screen for all the guests to see. This is a $200,000 transfer from Award Blackwood's personal account to Dr. Hamilton made 3 days after Henry Blackwood's death, Diane explained as a bank statement appeared. The note reads, "Silence is golden." Helena had moved far away from Award, by now silently crying as she realized that 20 years of marriage had been built on lies. And this, Diane continued, is an audio recording of Award discussing with his accountant how to falsify the books to cover up embezzlement. Award's voice echoed over the speakers, cold, calculating. "I need you to make those numbers dance. If anyone finds out I've siphoned off $20 million over 5 years, I'm done. Blame it on market volatility, expansion costs, make something up." Patricia Weston turned to Vivian, shivering. "My God, he stole from his own company." In the center of the grand hall, Butterfly remained still, no tears, no smile. Calm in the eye of the storm, watching Award's world unravel piece by piece. Then David Choan approached with a fresh stack of legal documents. "Mr. Award Blackwood, in addition to the criminal charges, I must inform you that Ms. Butterfly Temps is filing a civil suit against you demanding $50 million in damages for her father's wrongful death and for the theft of her rightful inheritance." 50 million. Award looked up, his eyes dull. "I don't have 50 million anymore." "No," Butterfly said gently, "but your company is worth $120 million and half of that has always belonged to me." Diane continued, presenting new evidence. "We also have proof that Award has blackmailed at least 5 politicians, bribed 3 judges, and misappropriated funds from charity accounts for personal use." And with every revelation, gasps echoed around the room, and more people distanced themselves from Award as if he were diseased. Award raised his head, voice shaking. "Butterfly, you've got what you wanted. Please stop now." Butterfly stepped forward, kneeling to meet his eyes, wild and terrified. "Award, you murdered my father. You stole my family, my childhood, my dignity. You made me scrub the blood of my own father at the feet of his killer. And now, you want forgiveness. You can make it up," he whispered, voice full of despair. "No one can make up for 2 decades of injustice." Butterfly replied, her voice calm like a death sentence. "But you can pay the price." Just then, Helena's phone rang. She answered, and her face went pale. "Hello, sweetheart. What?" "They're saying your father's a murderer online." She turned to look at Award, her eyes colder than they had ever been. "Your children just found out who you really are on social media." Award tried to get up, but his knees buckled and he collapsed. "Helena, for the kids' sake, please." "Shut up!" Helena screamed, her voice slicing through the silence. "You don't get to talk about my children. You've shamed them for life." Dr. Hamilton walked over to Butterfly. "Ms. Temps, I've called the police. Award will be arrested today for murder. And," Butterfly added, "fraud, extortion, tax evasion. He'll spend the rest of his life in prison." She turned toward the remaining guests, all now staring at her with a strange mix of awe and fear. "I want everyone here to understand something. I didn't do this for revenge. I did it for justice, for everyone who's ever been crushed by men like Award Blackwood." Patricia Weston stepped forward awkwardly. "Butterfly, we're sorry. We didn't know." "Didn't know." Butterfly turned her eyes like ice. "You knew I was treated like trash. You laughed, joined in. The only difference now is you know I have more money than you." Outside, the wail of sirens echoed through the gates. Award lowered his head, realizing it was over. "You've ruined my life," he muttered. Butterfly stood proud like a queen amid the ruins. "No, you ruined your life the moment you chose evil. I'm just the one who brought the truth into the light." As the officers led Award Blackwood out of the grand hall, the very room where just hours earlier he'd smugly dragged her name through the dirt, Butterfly stood on the balcony watching from above. Below, dozens of reporters, flashing cameras, and news vans jostled for a shot. The story had exploded across the city, the biggest scandal Beverly Hills had seen in decades. Helena quietly stepped beside, her eyes still red. "Butterfly, I didn't know. I really didn't." "I know," Butterfly said gently, her voice free of resentment. "You were his victim too." "So, what happens now?" Helena asked, as if waking from a 20-year nightmare. Butterfly looked out over the glowing city below. Now, justice is finally served, and maybe, just maybe, Beverly Hills will learn that status isn't defined by a bank balance. Award Blackwood, once a symbol of wealth and power, was now handcuffed and escorted through the same doors where he once schemed to ruin a poor black woman's life. Now the whole world watched him fall, 6 months later. The sign outside the CEO's office no longer read Award Blackwood. It now read Butterfly Temps Blackwood, Chief Executive Officer. The room, once filled with gold trophies and power symbols, now displayed social certificates, staff photos, and portraits of employees who rose from janitors to directors. The company, once built on exploitation, had become a beacon of opportunity and compassion. Award was sentenced to 25 years in prison without parole, convicted of murder, embezzlement, blackmail, and tax fraud. All personal assets were seized to compensate the victims, and Butterfly was just one of many people he had destroyed. Ms. Temps Blackwood. Amanda, Butterfly's new executive assistant, knocked and entered. The Forbes journalist has arrived for the interview about the company's transformation. Amanda, once a janitor in this very building, was now Butterfly's right hand. Butterfly smiled. In just 6 months, she had increased company profits by 40%, not through scheming, but simply by treating employees like human beings, fair wages, promotions based on merit, a respectful, humane work environment. Helena had divorced immediately and moved out of state with her children. But before leaving, she came to see Butterfly one last time to apologize. "You could have completely destroyed us, but you chose to protect my children. I will never forget that kindness." Butterfly only gave a short reply. Children shouldn't have to pay for the sins of their parents. They deserve a chance to become better than him. Dr. Hamilton, once silenced by threats, was now the company's medical advisor, providing free health care for all employees. "I never thought I'd have the courage to tell the truth," he told Butterfly in a meeting. "You showed me it's never too late to reclaim one's dignity." Patricia Weston and Vivian Chambers, who once laughed at Butterfly when she entered the lobby in that aristocratic dress, had now tried to reconnect and make amends. Butterfly politely declined. "You laughed at me when you thought I was trash. Now that you know I have money, you want to be friends. That tells me everything I need to know about who you are." Butterfly's story quickly spread across the globe. She received countless invitations to speak at universities and social justice conferences, but she chose to stay with the company. "I don't want to be famous for what I endured," she said in a rare interview. "I want to be remembered for what I built afterward." Under Butterfly's leadership, the Blackwood Corporation now funds scholarships for employees' children, runs microcredit funds for underprivileged communities, and has established California's largest domestic abuse victim support foundation. One quiet afternoon, Butterfly received a letter from prison. It was from Award himself. "Butterfly, I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I need you to know that you made me realize what a monster I had become. I spend every day trying to understand why I killed my father for money. My kids asked about you during their last visit. They want to meet the aunt who protected our family when their own father couldn't." Butterfly kept the letter but didn't reply. Forgiveness is a personal journey, but justice had been served. In her Forbes interview, the journalist asked, "Some say you took revenge too harshly. What's your response?" Butterfly replied calmly, "Revenge is doing to him what he did to me. Justice is making him pay for his crimes and ensuring no one else has to suffer like I did. Those two things are very different." "And what advice would you give to someone facing injustice?" the journalist asked. Butterfly looked out the window where employees were enjoying lunch in the newly renovated garden. "The best revenge isn't destroying the person who hurt you. It's building something so great that the injustice you suffered becomes just the opening chapter of your legacy." That evening, Butterfly returned home, no longer the tiny apartment where she once dreamt of vengeance, but a warm, welcoming house where she was now raising 2 orphaned girls, children like she once was, who needed a second chance at life. As she helped them with their homework, Butterfly thought of the father she never truly knew, but whose blood ran through her veins. Henry Blackwood would surely be proud to see that the daughter once cast aside had not only reclaimed what was rightfully hers, but transformed an empire once built on exploitation into a symbol of opportunity and dignity. Butterfly's true victory wasn't in taking down Award. It was in proving something far more important, that when power is built on justice instead of fear, it multiplies and spreads. A ward tried to humiliate a janitor only to discover the most dangerous person in the room was the one everyone overlooked. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed a relaxing and captivating storytelling experience. If you liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support gives me the motivation to create more amazing content.